take roll here. Mostly, I have the opportunity to see most of our people, but we have a lot of guests that have called in too, because we have some people presenting. So I apologize, I wasn't able to manage all of it. Okay, I see. Here. I believe that, let's see, Dr. Bledsoe is absent. Unless, did you call in? No, I don't think, he was not able to make it today. Secretary Walther, I haven't seen him, but I'm sure they're calling. Oh, there he is, he's in. And I see Mike Preston.
Yes, I'm here. We're having some trouble with our video connection, so I may be on my iPad, I may not be.
That's fine, we can see part of you, so that's good. I see Secretary Gillespie.
What's that say right there? Okay.
Secretary Jamie Cook, are you here, or do you have someone here for you? And is Gina on for Secretary P?
I am.
Okay, hi.
Hello.
And Karen Watley, have you joined? Yes, I see Karen Watley is here in place of Bill Gossage. And Senator Bond is here, Senator Wallace is here. I saw Representative Allen. Representative Jean, did I see you as well? Okay, we'll have to watch for Representative Jean and Representative Michelle Gray. And Senator Irvin was finishing the public health meeting, so she may be a minute behind. And I know that Secretary Fetcher was also in that meeting. So we're trying to get everybody hooked up. Okay, we'll go ahead and I really wanted to let the committee members know how much I appreciate your patience with the multitude of emails and updates or Outlook updates that I sent related to this meeting. We continue to receive valuable documents, and so I hope you've been able to process through that and have the information. It was advised that it would be helpful to put the documents in the Outlook invitation so you would have all the documents in your calendar so you could find those. I'm happy to email them to you separately if you would like. Just please let me know that. Okay, so we'll get started with first presentation that we'll have today is going to be from the cities and counties. Oh, good. Senator Irvin has joined us. Hi. Glad you made it over. So on our agenda, we have removed item B. The first item is from the cities and counties, and I know that Larry Walther, Secretary Walther, has a number of people here to assist with that presentation. And I think I'd ask for the FNA to start, and then we'll hear from the cities and counties, and then I know a lot of y'all will have questions. I think I did give us a little bit of time, but I think we need to go ahead and start. But if anybody has an objection to that.
Secretary Smith, are you going to, I didn't hear you, but did you approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Oh, no, that'll buy us a minute. No, I did circulate the minute. Does anyone have any changes or corrections to the minute? Was that a motion, Secretary Walther?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the meeting of, where are they?
August 17th?
August 17th.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
I'll second.
Thank you, Secretary Preston. We have a second. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from August 17th meeting?
Aye.
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 Thank you. I'm seeing nods, waves, and all that. So I appreciate that, committee. So the minutes have been approved. So Secretary Walther, is your group ready?
Yes,
start
we are ready.
cities and counties? And I know we have Mark Hayes.
Mark
and
Hayes should be there, Chris Valines.
Yes.
We're here. We are.
Right.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I have, Secretary, I have a group of people here, but primarily I've got Paul Lothian, who has led the team that is working with CTEH and Haggerty to design and implement the system that'll be used to not only for the cities and counties, but also for the agencies, state agencies, as we expend money. We're going to go back and input what we've already done, along with, as we go forward, we'll be tracking everything that we're spending, hopefully to the recipient of the CARES dollars.
That's great.
Alan,
Would you mind putting mute on your iPad, Secretary Walker?
I'll just turn it off. Well,
Thank you. We were having an echo.
I'm sorry, I thought I had it off.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
What was it? Kind of getting feedback on there? Okay, well, all right. So where was I? Well, you know, the system we're designing will be used throughout government and state and the cities and counties. We've made a lot of progress. A lot of work's been going on. I want to thank the counties and the cities for the work they've done and the coordination that we've had with them. It's amazing what we've accomplished in these last, about 5 weeks since we started the project. I think you can see from the material that we've provided, there's more to come, but an extensive amount of work has been done. A lot of thought has been put into designing the process and the documentation that we'll be requiring to receive, as well as we'll be providing this committee and others as we move forward throughout the year. I guess one of the first things that y'all might want to know is how we are proposing to allocate the $150 million between the cities and the counties. And I would like for Chris and Mark, they've kind of been a tag team on that. They do a wonderful job of explaining how they got where they are, the recommendation that they've made to us on how we will allocate between the cities, the groups, all the cities and all the counties, and then how we'll administer that. So I would like to hear from those two guys to brief us on how that occurred.
Okay, that would be good. And real quickly, before they begin, I wanted to make sure to let the committee know of the decisions that we will be making as a committee today. First, you will remember when the cities and counties came to us for the request, they initially asked that we set aside $150 million so that they could come back to us to let us know what they needed their funding for. And initially they were wanting us to help with lost revenue, which we still know that has not been approved by the Treasury's guidance. So we have had this $150 million on hold, anticipating them coming back with a request. So they have been working with DFNA to identify the areas that are allowable. And they have also worked, DFNA asked them to discuss the allocation methodology to come up with a plan that they thought would be fair. I want the committee members to know that many other states with larger cities had been required to receive specific funding. The federal government actually gave funding directly to cities over 500,000. And then they also gave guidance, the US Treasury gave guidance to states recommending potentially 45% of the funds that were received by the states to be directly allocated to the smaller areas of government, so to the cities, towns, and counties. And obviously, we did have a discussion in here about that, and Mark and Chris will also say this, that I think they believe that would be too much for them directly. So I want to make sure the committee understands that we will need to make a determination as to the dollar value of funding that we will allocate to this project. And then the methodology, will approve the methodology that they've determined. Then the next step will be related to the items that they will be able to get reimbursed for, or that they will be able to get funding for. And so we'll have about 3 different conversations, I guess, with 3 different things to review. So I hope that makes sense to y'all. And we'll try to keep these items on track. So we'll let them talk about the allocation methodology. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Smith. This is Chris Lyons. Can you hear me? Secretary Smith?
Sorry, I'm muted. Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear us?
I can
Secretary
hear you. I can hear
good.
you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Very good. Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Okay, good. Yes, please go ahead.
Well, and thank you so much for that. And just so y'all know, I'm sitting with Mark Hayes in our conference room down at the Association of Counties, talking with you. And before I begin, let me say how much I appreciate Secretary Walther and Paul Lothian over at DF&A. They've been a great team for us to work with. There's a lot of new ground that we've plowed going through this process, and I really appreciate everybody's wisdom and working together. And then also, Secretary Smith, you and Senator Ervin and Representative Jean spent a lot of time a couple of weeks ago with us as a subcommittee walking through our phases, what we were going to propose, and the allocation model that we proposed. And I appreciate y'all walking through that with us and helping us. I think everybody on the committee has gotten copies of our proposal in a nutshell. And let me just say it has changed. In the last 24 hours, we built what we think is a better mousetrap. Mark and I met with Secretary Walther and the governor yesterday afternoon and walked through the proposal. We've talked a lot with DF&A, and as everybody on this committee knows, we have such a short time frame to turn this around that what we aspire to do is to make this as quick a process as possible so that any money that is not used by cities and counties can quickly get turned back to the CARES Act Steering Committee for distribution elsewhere. And so in front of you, you have 3 letters, a series of letters that were sent to DF&A under joint letterheads from the Municipal League and the Association of Counties. And these outline the phases and the time frame that we want to use. And so specifically, the last letter was one that, based on yesterday's conversations that went out this morning, it shortens the time frame and simplifies the phases, but suffice it to say that under that letter, our proposal is to have 2 separate phases and allocation models that are set out for cities and counties. So for the cities and counties, the $75 million is divided between each. The cities have an allocation model that is based on population. The counties have an allocation model that is based partially on their general turnback formula that the state uses and partially on public safety compensation. Both of those things are metrics that we think are going to be used a lot in applications for reimbursement. The 2 phases are phase 1, which would end October 30th. Phase 1 would allow all of the cities and counties to make application using DF&A application processes developed in conjunction with CTEH and Hagerty to apply for reimbursement up to their total allocation number. Any amount that they don't get, or that any gap that is left between what they receive in phase 1 and that allocation cap, they could then go and apply for in phase 2, which would be a much shorter 15-day time period that would end November the 16th. So what we know in our work with cities and counties is there will be people, bless their hearts, that look up on the day after and figure out, oh yeah, I should have turned that application in. So this gives him a second chance, or as Mark Hayes will tell you, a second bite at the apple in the last 15 days to go after that. I really appreciate your comments, Secretary Smith, in that we are very careful not to ask for more money than we think cities and counties should get out of this. There should be no unjust enrichment for local government. There should simply be a recompense for those costs that are allowable under the CARES Act that we can turn in and get some reimbursement for. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Mark, and then I think we'll be happy to answer any questions.
It's late in the day, and I certainly don't want to repeat the things that Chris has already told you. I think he's right on point for how the league feels and how cities and towns feel. I would note that our distribution allocation formula, if you will, is slightly different. It's a totally per capita amount per city, and that's a model that cities and towns are used to. It's how most of their funding is done, et cetera. And I will echo this thought, that the allocation that we're talking about that's on the documents you have is not a payment. That is simply the amount that a city or town could get if they have the appropriate evidence that meets the criteria of the CARES Act and fits the model that the vendor and DFA are putting together. So I feel, just like Chris, feel very strongly that this needs to be evidence-based so that it's clear that they're being reimbursed for actual things that were spent related to COVID. And Chris is exactly right. It is a second bite at the same apple, having the 2 periods of time. I can see where a city would only get half of their or a county would only get half of their evidence in the first round, and then realize that they needed to dig a little further and find a few other things than they do for the second round. So that's sort of it. In a nutshell, we have really worked very hard with Secretary Walther's organization, and I want special thanks to Paul. We had, I think, with the staff folks that we've both committed, we have the makings of a really solid method for recompense, as Chris said. And I too do not wish it to be any sort of windfall. I want to make sure that it's money put to the right things in the right way. And with that, I think Chris and I both stand for questions if there are any.
Secretary Smith?
Sorry, I was having a hard time finding the mute button. Yes. Go ahead. I think, is that Representative Jean, did you have a question?
Oh, it's Fred Allen.
Oh, Fred Allen. Both of y'all popped up on my screen. Hi, go ahead, Representative Allen.
Okay. This question is either for Chris or Martin. What are your projections? How much of this money do you think you all will actually use? I'm sure you have a figure in mind.
This is Chris, Representative. It's a really good question and one we've struggled with from the beginning. And I think what we have felt is, and I hate to use the word felt here, but we have no hard evidence yet. We have anecdotal evidence that's coming in. Some of the cities and some of the counties have done a really good job of accounting so far, so I feel like some of them are on top of it. We feel like the $75 million will exceed what our ask is for each group. That's why we feel comfortable going ahead with this ask, and we would only do so with the fact that there's plenty of time if we don't get to that cap that it's turned back over for distribution by the state.
Under the calendar we're using, there'd be close to 6 weeks before the end of the year that would allow for you to redistribute or for the money to be redistributed as appropriate. And I would add that if there was a city or county that somehow did exceed their allocation, they could come back individually and make a request at that point.
Okay, so 75 million is in the first phase, right?
No, sir. 75 million for counties, 75 million for cities, and that is for phase 1 and 2.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Representative Jean, do you have a question? I guess you're just not on mute, so you keep your face is showing on my screen. Anyone have any questions? Bond, do you have any questions?
I do have a couple of
Go ahead.
questions. It's shocking, as I know it is. So this may be for DF&A, and then I have one for or two for Mark and Chris. Do we know what the contractor cost is going to be for this? Have we already covered that in the previous CTEH proposal? Or I'm a little bit worried about the contractor being able to deliver on these tight timelines. So do we have a cost on that? And in the contract with CTEH and their partner, do we have like the number of employees they have to have and the turnaround time they have to have? I just have envision this thing getting jammed up.
Well, yes, we did a competitive bid on a fast track. We had three companies? We had 3 companies that made proposals, and CTEH was the lowest. It's under $4 million. Paul, are there in the contract, are there any specific timeframes?
There wasn't any specific timeframes other than we asked that they stand up the application process within 5 to 6 weeks of signing, and we will hit that mark next week. We told them we had to have a call center, we had to have the appropriate staff to man that it would be dependent upon the work that we put out and how we laid out the program, that they had to man that. They had to help with the compliance review of the receipting that came in and get us ready for the audit that we know will follow, and that they would scale up or down as they needed to make that happen in conjunction with the staff that we would bring to the table.
All right, so following up on that, these timelines that are in these latest letters that we've received, like October 31st and then November 15th, has CTEH said they're going to be able to process stuff that quick?
They understand that I have made that commitment. They will help me make that time frame. I think when we go through the process that I'm going to speak to, you'll understand why those time frames are more manageable and achievable because of some work that we're going to help the cities and counties do on the front end. I think that may help you understand how we think we can do that.
All right, and then for Chris and Mark, and I talked to Mark a little bit about this already, but we have some concern, in Central Arkansas, particularly over arenas, large event centers, things like that, who are either public entities or quasi-public entities like Simmons Arena here that's been shut down essentially by the health directive since March. Do we believe they will be qualified for this money through their counties and cities? I know that's been something that's bounced around. I just want to make sure they have a place where they fit in this proposal, hopefully, or somewhere, because they're really taking it on the chin, our arenas and large event centers.
If I could address it, and then Chris may have some comments too. We are of the opinion that based upon the guidance from the CARES Act itself and the Treasury Department, that it is unlikely that revenue per se could be reimbursed, or lost revenue could be reimbursed. There is probably a way to talk about employment issues, any maintenance issues on the building that have gone because they've had to wait so long and not do anything, and things like that. It is not an easy question. We are going to dig hard to try to find some link back to the act, because Senator, you're exactly right. I've had phone calls from all over the state, and you can call them whatever you want, community centers, convention centers, et cetera, and they've all essentially had to close their doors. So we're going to have to do some additional work to see if we can really do substantial help. But the conventional wisdom right now is, which would be the largest dollar amount, would be the lost revenue, and we don't think that's compensable. If we can find a way to make it that way, you rest assured we will push as hard as we can to do that.
Yeah, Senator, I'll follow up. This is Chris. That's a really good question. I will say that the allocation models show over $14 million that would go just to Little Rock and Pulaski County if they have the proper expenses to submit for that. So we're going to work with them on the structure of Simmons Arena, how it's put together, how it's funded. And of course, the good news about those two is they've got their own in-house counsel, which will help with that quite a bit. But when we were meeting with the governor yesterday, he brought up this very same point, and that is smaller convention centers and community centers around the state are being hit especially hard. And so we expect to be digging, and poor Mark Whitmore's not in here with me, but I expect Mark Whitmore's going to be getting a lot of phone calls from county judges on how we can do that county by county, Mark Hayes and his group, city by city across the state to try and help prop them up through this. It's conceivable that you have one in one county that is perfectly acceptable to get some money out of this, and another one, because of the way they're structured, might not. It's just going to be a case-by-case issue on how as you well know, how legally they're going to be set up and what the cities and counties can do for them.
Well, and just for the committee, I know there's going to be a lot of proposals, including some others that I'm interested in also as we go forward. I think that issue of these event centers, convention and visitors bureaus, managed facilities, those types of things, we need to keep those in mind and make sure that we take care of them. What I hear you say is you're gonna try and get some reimbursement through this program, but that may not be sufficient. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
That's all the questions I have at this second. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members have any questions or need additional information regarding this proposal? And if you are muted and you can't open your line,
Secretary Smith, are there any additional questions?
I don't see any. That's what I was just checking to make sure. I don't think we have any additional questions, and I'm glad, but I'm surprised.
One follow-up for me, I apologize. Just out of curiosity, we've set the $50,000 limit, I guess. Just in DFNA, want to say, y'all want to, how do we arrive at that? I'm not sure if it's too low or, or what. And then do we have an anticipation of how many proposals this committee will have to hear in the other category? Just from a committee standpoint, I wonder, how that will flow. Have we given that any thought?
Okay. Senator, I came up with the $50,000 just as a figure to start with for conversation. We feel like there will be a lot of smaller projects submitted when you look at the cities and the amount of money they're getting. There's a large group of those that won't get $50,000. Some will certainly get more than that. And the concept was just to give us a place to say, this is a small enough dollar amount that y'all will defer to our judgment as long as it fits within certain categories of items that we'll discuss at the next meeting. We're working on a list for that. In addition to the PPE that has been approved at the state level for state agencies, we want to make that one part of the equation. And then we're going to add additional items that fall under the categories of reporting, those 18 categories, which are some stuff like anticipation loans and things like that, that the cities and counties will not be able to do. So there'll probably be a real number of about 12 or 13 of those categories. And we want to give you a list of things that seem common for use and it would be easy for y'all to say yes to. And if they make a proposal that's $50,000 or less and it's in those categories of approved items, then DFA and CTEC will review that, sign off on it, and process the reimbursement so that it doesn't bog the system down and have to come to y'all for any kind of verification. That number of 50,000 can move up or down at y'all's discretion. It was just a starting point for the discussion based on the size of some of the requests that we thought we would have.
And we also anticipate providing you weekly those that we've approved that were under the $50,000 mark. So that'll give us an idea of whether it's working or not. Also, if anything falls under the other category, it doesn't fall within the 17 that are well defined, anything that falls under other will come to this committee
For its review. The other side of that coin is you'll also have, for the members of the steering committee, we will see that you have a sign-on so that you can get into the system and look at what's in the system at any point in time in case there's something that's not on the web-facing portal that you would like to see. You'll be able to see a lot of this at the portal level at any given time. You can look up and see where a county or a city is in the process of the applications they have submitted to us. Yeah, anyway, that's the long and short of that.
I get that. That's just we just started at 50 to establish a starting point. My gut was, maybe it's a little low, but I'm fine with it. And I understand it sounds dangerous to give us access, but I appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Secretary Smith, may I go ahead?
Please. Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, I've got a couple of comments. There's been a question concerning how much we expect to spend. That's kind of the $64,000 question that's been rolling around in our heads since the very beginning, as when we started looking at this. I'm getting a little more optimistic, and I guess in a sense optimistic that there's going to be 500 cities and 75 counties that'll have access to a certain amount of money, and they will have the ability to look at their local needs on a local basis in the county. And Stone County, for instance, the mayor and its county judge who are closest to the issues in that county can evaluate where these needs are. And it's my understanding that we'll be able to, or they'll be able to fund like food banks, rental assistance, mortgage assistance, where it's COVID related, things like that. Lead me to believe that we're gonna be able to support these counties to a great degree and assist those citizens in Arkansas who are in need because of this COVID crisis. And so my sense is we're probably going to spend more than I thought, surely, when I first started thinking about this. And hopefully that'll work out. I'd like to now ask Paul Lothian to talk about, kind of give an overview of the kind of the approval process that we've developed, the grant management system that is in the development stage and kind of in the final stages of that right now. So Paul.
So we've been working with Haggerty Group and CTEC to develop the portal that will be used. We saw a demonstration yesterday of the application process, and they're fine tuning that. We hope to have that up and available for training to start on Monday. And we gave y'all an application here to review as kind of what we submitted for them to work with. And we think that what we saw yesterday follows a lot of this in theory about how you will walk through the application, answer the questions. But they've developed something that's It's slick enough that you start through it, it's intuitive, it lets you answer one question, it brings up the next question, it helps you decide what the answer to that needs to be. And that will be basically building the database of information necessary to work with that city or county so that it has the DUNS number, the address, the contact person, what type of project you're starting, what classification it falls under, to help us categorize things as we go into that. The concept at that point will be that we are going to put forth 5 or 6, maybe 7 pre-filled applications for certain types of reimbursement to try to help the cities and counties answer the questions that need to be answered for financial or the federal reporting, to give us the information of why they think that that's going to be reimbursable by the CARES Act. One of them that we pre-filled out is the jailer. We think that most of the counties will have jail costs that can be reimbursed very quickly, get a large amount of the money that they've been allocated back into their treasury by filling out those forms, submitting the payroll information documentation that we've asked for. So we're going to try to do that with 5 or 6, maybe 7 different avenues of spending. I had a phone call from Haggerty this afternoon that said they had identified 4 more items that they would like to submit to us for review as a pre-approved type item also. One of those was talking about the $500 per student per school that was recently discussed in the latest guidance that comes out. You know, we'll have to sit down and talk about that at with the city and county organizations, decide if that's something we want to put forth and how we would do that. But they're bringing ideas to the table. We have some ideas also. We're going to try to get that to the point that if the city or county makes an application for that type of assistance, then we will turn around and try to develop the form to document the questions they need to ask their recipient so that they will be able to be much more capable of talking to the individual that needs to fill that out, helping that person get the right information in, and ultimately getting that turned around very quickly, whether it's rental assistance or whether it's school funding or whether it's the jailer's reimbursement. We're going to try to do everything we can to put that suggestion forward, let them tweak it if they need to, but be able to sign that application internally in the system and submit it back to us. There's a couple of things that we need to talk about that was in the business process. We need some decisions on how to move forward with that. One of the conversations that was had 2 or 3 weeks ago was that potentially some of the cities might need an advance to go with the allocation. They might not have the money to be able to spend for a project. Certainly, I think that's a possibility. However, I think some of this money that we're talking about has probably already been spent since March, and we'll have the ability when they start their application process, when they complete that, they can hit another button and go over and start the project. And if it's something that's pre-approved, they can simply fill out that part of the application at that time and upload their documentation and make a request for funding at that point in time, which would get them a quick turnaround of those dollars already spent, which would then allow them to spend those dollars to complete their allocation. If they don't have that wherewithal, then I think one of the things we need to do is add a statement to the application process where they make the statement they need the funding to pre-fund the project, And they agree that if anything is misapplied, misspent, not properly documented in the expenditures they make, that they would allow the state to withhold that from their city county turnback as a method of collecting that money back, so that the state's not at risk for those dollars. But that would be a decision that the committee would have to determine.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about the business process? I do want us to make some decisions, have an opportunity to vote on the dollar value, and then how to handle the
That's the
process.
motion.
Okay, I hear somebody that's
Turn around at
Lane
$50,000.
Jean, Representative Jean, is that you?
I didn't want anything.
Someone has a question. Who has a question?
I have a question. And,
Here, please go ahead, Representative Allen.
and I don't know if it's directly related to this. I know early on, we made a decision to set aside $250 million, and that was for a rainy day. So in case the virus comes back, but as you know, the virus never left. So my question is, at what point in time can this money be used to help people?
If I could answer that,
Sure.
I think we said we would revisit it October 1st. So I think we'll look at that beginning of next month is what we said when we set it aside. So I guess that's in 20 days or so.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. I couldn't remember what date we set aside to take a look at it.
October 1st.
Okay.
Thank you. So are there any questions regarding the business process or the allocation, additional questions on the allocation?
Madam Secretary,
Yes, go ahead.
could I make a motion to approve Paul's recommendation with regard to the advancement of money to cities who requested and need it?
I think Senator Bond had a question. He was raising his hand before you said that. I'm okay with that.
No, well,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Senator.
no, all I was going to say is, how are we going to take it? I had in my head, we might approve the 150 and the division proposed how they're going to divide it, and then move on. The way I read the business process is we have to make a couple of decisions within it. So I thought that would be next, but however y'all want to do it.
Yeah, this is Senator Irvin.
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's probably what Senator Bond said was probably the correct process. Is first just to make a motion to accept the cities and counties proposal as to how to divide this $150 million. And then to move to Secretary Walther's motion on the business process of it. But I would make the motion to accept the city and county's proposal of how to divide the $150 million, if you're ready for that.
Okay, I think I am ready for that, and you are recommending that we do accept the request for $150 million, and then we would divide it in the allocation methodology that they presented. So yes. I hear that motion. Thank you from Senator Irvin. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I saw Senator Bond raising his hand. Was there another issue or something? Okay, we're good.
No, I was trying to second. I was just
okay. Good. That's what I thought.
Whoever wants to second. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'll count you as our second. Now, any discussion on this motion? I'm going to sit here for a second and look just to make sure. I do want to call for a vote, but I certainly wouldn't want to leave somebody out that needed to say something. Okay, I do not see any additional questions on those 2 points related to this motion to approve the $150 million proposal and the allocation methodology, 75 million to split between the cities and counties in the ways that they have recommended today from the Association of Counties and Municipal League. So all those in favor, if you could open up your mics, and then I will listen for your vote.
Aye.
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 All right.
Aye, aye.
Aye. You can't vote twice, Larry. Thank you.
It's in the presidential election.
I did recognize your voice though. Okay, are there any opposed? Okay, no opposed. Good. Okay, thank you. So the vote has passed. Now we need to move on to Secretary Walther. He has moved to accept the methodology piece. So in the business process, you have a packet of information. One of the issues within there is related to whether or not we will be able to give funding up front to any of the cities, towns, or counties. We do, I think, want to go ahead and allow for that. I think that what Secretary Walther is recommending is that we use item methodology 3, which is to allow for that, but they would sign a note requiring proof of and agreement that we can claw back those funds. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second his motion.
Thank you, Secretary Preston. Any discussion on that piece? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, very good, thank you. So that has passed. Now, I'll turn it back over to Secretary Walther if you want to explain what the next piece of our business process puzzle is, or if you need me to do that, let me know.
Go ahead.
Secretary Smith, we also need to decide about the $50,000 pre-approval list.
Yes.
With the understanding that currently we have the PPE piece that y'all have approved for state agencies, and that at the next committee meeting, we will add an additional list of items that would also dovetail into that $50,000.
So I think we're asking for a pre-approval of the approval of the pre-approval list that you already done or previously, but do it for the cities and counties also.
Correct.
Okay, and I think I think that sounds like a motion.
That's a motion.
All right, a second?
Second.
Second by Senator Irvin. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 What else we need?
Opposed? Is there anyone opposed? I just want to make sure if there is. All right, so that piece is solved.
Yep.
But we are going to wait and receive additional information from CFNA related to the items. And one of the reasons that we don't have this finalized yet is because the guidance keeps changing. And we want to be able to narrow down the items that are basically pre-approved. I don't want us to take up a lot of your time as a committee to have to go through multiple proposals for items that ought to just be fine for them to spend the money on, and we can just go forward. One thing that I am concerned about is if a city or a town or a county were to be able to try to spend their funding on something that would be basically a waste. I mean, I guess it's their own loss. But for example, we've heard from the Department of Health that there are some, this issue may be solved now, but there have been some testing equipment, and it requires certain types of reagents or certain types of to run those pieces of testing equipment. Obviously, the testing equipment would fall within the requirements of COVID if you're testing for COVID. But if they're not able to use that, then I would not want us to allow for that expenditure, if that makes sense. So we might, look at that. type of guidance is if there is something that would be, if they're going to spend all their money on something like that. So what are the other things we need to make decisions on, Mr. Lothian?
I think we're good. We'll have that additional list to you early next week and for review prior to the meeting. And just to help you with that last comment, that is part of what I marked off of that list today was testing kits and stuff that we believe either we believe that the state level expenditures and oversight has been done at the state level through either the health department or DHS. We're going to try to take those things off of that so that it's things that we believe the cities or the counties have the expertise and the need to spend their money on and not include things that need to be at the state level. I think you'll see that when we bring that forward.
That's very helpful. That's very helpful. And obviously if we
lost you, Elizabeth.
We don't hear you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just talking away. Anyway, thank you. I don't need to repeat what I said.
Secretary Smith, this is Larry Walther again. I'd like to thank the steering committee for supporting what we've been doing. I also like to thank Paul Lothian and his team, the work they've done and the support we've had and the cooperation we've had with the cities and counties. And we're not through. I don't mean to imply that we're through. We've got a lot of work to do, but the progress that we've made so far, I think is excellent. And I expect the rest of it to be in the same vein. So I appreciate it.
I agree. I applaud all of you. Thank you for taking on the hard work because that's really taken a lot of the work off of the committee members. And I appreciate y'all doing that. We look forward to seeing the additional information later on. But one thing that's very good, we have received a lot of requests from individual locations, cities, towns, requests from those areas. And so this will be very helpful to them. So I'm glad that these dollars will be going there.
Hey,
I know
Secretary Smith.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Chris Valines. I just wanted to say too, I want to echo what Secretary Walther was saying. I work with a lot of county associations across the country, and I can tell you that their relationships with their local municipal leagues don't begin to approach the good relationship that we have here. And I'd be remiss if I didn't take this time to thank Mark Hayes and his staff and their great working relationship that they have with us. This would not be possible in many other states, and I really appreciate them.
Thank you. I agree. I do applaud y'all actually working together and figuring this out and keeping us, giving us the opportunity to let you do that. And Senator Irvin did speak to that this is Arkansas. These are Arkansans, and this is why I think things are working so well here. So I appreciate her comments from the Public Health Committee meeting we had earlier. And we look forward to seeing these dollars be well spent. So putting it to good use. And I think that the reimbursement request will start fairly soon. So we look forward to that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we spent more time on that than I thought we would, but that's okay. It's good. It's hard to spend $150 million. Moving on to the next request is from the Department of Health. We have welcome Secretary Dr. Romero. I think this is the first time you've come to our committee, so we appreciate that. And I believe that we have Director Sharonda Love from the Minority Health Commission regarding public health equity response team mobile health units request for $6.5 million, and it does relate to testing. But I think this is a good request. It is specifically to be mobile so that it can go into communities that are having a hard time getting tests. So if you want to open your mic, I'll turn it over to y'all.
Okay, thank you very much, Secretary Smith. And thank you all for allowing me to be here for the first time. I'm sorry, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't see myself, and then I realized I had my camera with a security cover on it. So now that I've overcome that technical difficulty. So I'm going to do the introduction for this, and then I will turn it over to Chief of Staff Williams and the Minority Health Commission Director, Ms. Sharonda Love. Forgive me if I'm not following protocol. It's my first time, and you can correct me as I go forward. So I'm going to introduce proposal Health Equity Response Team for Mobile Health Units. As mentioned by the Secretary, the request for funding is for a sum of $6,592,059. Maybe you should put the cap in. Doctor.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Did we lose Dr. Is that what
Can
happened?
am I the only one that can't hear him?
No, I can't either.
No.
I can't
We
hear.
lost-
I can't either. And I think Elizabeth, Secretary Smith may be gone as well.
Uh-oh.
She sent me a text saying, I lost connection. Y'all go ahead. So,
There's been some AT&T connection problems here at the Capitol.
yes,
Yeah.
we've had them too. Is Director Love around? Is she on?
There's Dave. Go, Dave, go.
Okay.
What happened?
This is where we spent all the money.
Here she is.
Elizabeth, you're back.
Yes.
Is that the only one that got lost?
Dr. Romero.
We lose him too? Okay. Well, hopefully they'll call back in. Did you hear much of the proposal? Because we could just move that one down the list and let them call back in. Do you want to do that?
And this
Yeah.
is
Oh, there's Sharonda Love. Are you on?
Yeah,
Or is
I
she
was
just
able
stuck?
to log back in. Can you all hear me?
I think she's stuck.
Yes.
My stuff. Can y'all hear me anymore?
Can you hear me?
No, it's not gonna work.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay. Hi there. I'm sorry about that. If Dr. Romero is not back online, I'm happy to present the proposal.
Everybody's leaving.
Who all's there?
Senator Irvin is here.
Dave Wallace.
Well, I've lost video. I've got sound, but no video.
Okay, okay. Oh, good. Okay, we're back. All right. Can y'all hear me? Y'all, this is crazy. Can you hear me? I think we're back on live stream. Okay, so this might happen again. So it looks like the governor's office has lost, but I guess they're back on. So I think we are live streaming, so we can do this real quick. I don't know if we want to try to email y'all. If we get cut off again, maybe we'll try to set up a phone call to make a determination as to what steps next, because I know we wanted to set up a process where the public could see and hear what we're doing. So Let's just move on. I don't see Dr. Romero.
Secretary Smith.
Romero, you're back.
Secretary Smith, this is Larry Walther. Is it appropriate for us to talk about the funding that we have available to that's remaining, that's not committed?
Yes, let's, I think Dr. Romero is back. Would it be okay for him to go ahead and finish? Did anyone hear it?
I was, since he wasn't there, I was going to suggest we have that other discussion, but now that he's back, let's go forward.
I thought that's what you were thinking. Okay. Sorry, Dr. Romero. Now you're on mute.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I should see. I might. Okay, now are we back?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Both myself and
everything went out.
Yeah, everything went out.
So go ahead.
Forgot to pay the bill. So let me continue. The major portion of this ask is for funding for mobile health units. These units reach out to minority and underserved populations within the state to conduct a number of services. But this funding will provide funding for transportation to and from the teams of pop-up testing events throughout the state, as well as educational services also throughout the state. There are 5 organizations that have been identified that will be funded through this, and the Arkansas Department of Health will coordinate and guide these pop-up events and education events as necessary. They're essential, I think, to robust and targeted testing for COVID and education for COVID in the future. There also is a request for support of lay workers funded through not-for-profit organizations. These individuals, through clinics, or practices. These individuals will connect these local clinics and practices with the highest level of chronically ill patients, and will serve to improve the health of these individuals in those communities. A third aspect of this request for funding is dealing with testing and management by in-place teams. And this is a way to expand testing for COVID throughout the state, not just our current initiatives for testing for COVID for detection, but also future programs that could also be used for serologic testing that may guide our use of vaccines in the near future. It will also support nonprofit organizations to provide services such as food for quarantine facilities and special pop-ups and support for high-risk populations. And this has been particularly important for workers in the agricultural industry who have lost their livelihood because of, well, not lost, but temporarily put it on hold because of quarantine measures, and have difficulty feeding their families. And lastly, the request will support marketing and promotion of local and targeted advertisement for nonprofit organizations regarding testing and education for COVID. So at this point, then, I will turn it over to Ms. Sharonda Love for her more detailed discussion of this. And thank you for allowing me to present.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Romero. I would just like to add that the Minority Health Commission has been working with mobile health units throughout the state to provide access to preventive health screenings, developing partnerships in 66 out of our 75 counties. This would provide an opportunity for us to work with those partners, nonprofit entities, faith-based, community-based, and food pantries in an effort to reach the unreachable. Those who normally may not receive access to services at a clinic or at a local health unit, nor may not have access to get to a clinic or a local health unit. And so the utilization of these funds would be able to reach all corners of the state, providing access to minority populations, but serving anyone who would normally lack access. And I'm happy to take any questions as it relates to the proposal.
Thank you. And one thing I did want to note, we did receive a request from the low wealth communities down at, with the ad hoc committee for Southeast Arkansas. And I think I had already sent that out to the committee members. And this piece related to the mobile health units, I think will address one of the needs that they had identified. They had requested funding for community health centers, which the community health centers have received funding through the federal government, but they also specifically were requesting testing assistance. And so I think this is, and education and these types of things. So I think this will answer part of that request. Go ahead. Does anyone have any questions?
I have several questions.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So, so one of the questions I have, one is, you know, I want to look at where we are in funding, and I think that's what Secretary Walther was going to talk about. So I'd like to know if this cuts into the $250 million or not, and kind of where we are on that. That's one of my questions. And then I have another question outside of the mobile health units. We are doing testing events at all of our county health units. And so, you know, and we are doing pop-up testing there. So how frequently are we doing those? And those are all 75 counties. And then what are the 5 organizations, and how much have we already spent in the efforts of marketing and education? But I'd like to know specifically, you know, because I think there's a lot of buckets of money for those organizations through the DHS programs or other avenues. So those are my different questions. So if you can answer those, starting with Secretary Walther.
Okay, well, and I can actually, I mean, I'm interrupting Secretary Walther. I know he's the one carrying the purse strings, but this was one thing that I wanted to do for the committee prior to the meeting, was to make sure that I'm not going to be allowing presentations when we don't have enough money. So no, we're not planning on cutting into the $250 million with the presentations that we have today. If we were to approve all 5 of the presentations outside of the 150 that we've already approved, actually 6, it would be about a little over $67 million. We have left over right now that has not been allocated over $46 million. We also have money that is coming back from the Ready for Business, and we have some funds that are coming back from other allocations that were not able to utilize all of the funding. So I think that all of the proposals that we received today, I think that we can make, we will be okay if we approve those. But let's have Secretary Walther respond to that as well.
Well, I agree with you with regard to the number of the amount of requests that we have before us today. We will exceed the $1.25 billion. My understanding from talking, I believe Elizabeth, you and I were talking about this earlier today, that there are some amounts of money that can be reclaimed that we believe will not be used. There's one in commerce. One of the programs is over, and there's, let me see, where is it?
Ready for business.
Yeah.
19 million from Ready for Business.
Yeah, the Ready for Business is $19 million, and I would ask Secretary Preston if that money is going to be, is there any chance that money will be used? And if not, can we reclaim that money? So that would be an additional 19 million. My calculation has us 23. If we did everything we're talking about today, we'll be $23 million in the hole, and 19 won't get us there. So we'd have to have some more.
Right, and we removed the Department of Correction request.
Yeah, you only removed it to postpone it. You didn't take it
Well,
off.
I think they're, well.
Is the way I understood it.
Okay. And then we do have, and we had a proposal on this earlier, and I've talked with Secretary Gillespie, and she may, want to speak to this, but there's funding left over in the emergency request for reimbursement. They originally had 23.4 million. They've allocated 1 million, a little over 1 million, and they were wanting just to extend the time period on that. So our recommendation was to ask that they reduce the amount that they're asking for so that we could return about 12 million back to this for review by the committee. And so she's in the process of looking at that, but we haven't made that, they haven't actually done that yet.
And Secretary Smith, another thought would be, can some of these requests be scaled back? Sometimes when I'm working with Secretary Gillespie, when you open it up, you don't really have a choice. You have to provide it to all those who are eligible for it. And I understand that, but is that the case in each and every one of these others? In other words, is it a situation where you could buy fewer of the test kits or whatever, whatever it might be, and still deliver a service, but maybe not to as many as you would prefer to do? Could you do that with the Department of Heritage, where we have the business interruption proposal of $50 million? Could that be scaled back? But we're at a point, this committee needs to be thinking, backing up and looking at what we have and setting, we're at a point we thought we would get to, and we need to be thinking about what our priorities are, and we're going to have to, we can't approve all of them. I mean, all of them are good, and all of them have merit, but at some point, when you don't have enough money to fund them, we as a committee are going to have to make some decisions with regard to which ones we fund and which ones we don't. And my recommendation is we do not go over the 1.25 billion that we've been allocated, and let's don't commit to more than what we've been allocated. I would not feel comfortable at all doing that. Now, we can reclaim money. Yeah. We could go to the $250 million, but I'm not ready to do that because we set an objective of looking at that come October the 1st, and we have the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund that's sitting out there that is being depleted by the insurance that we've been paying over the last 5 months. And I think it's important that we use some of that money to, if not all of it, to replenish the trust fund. Those are decisions that we need to be contemplating as we move forward. So we may want to take a measured approach today on what we do.
This is Senator Irvin. I appreciate those comments, Secretary Walther, which is why I'm asking these questions, because in this proposal, it seems like we have already spent money on marketing and promotion in this area. We've already spent money on nonprofit peer support. The mobile health unit, although I think it's a great idea, I'm not sure if it's necessary because we've been able to have pop-up testing sites at all of the local county health units because I got tested there myself. So I appreciate this approach, but I feel like we've already spent this money in different pockets and different areas. and so, and that's why I asked that question. I'm not really quite sure about some of these things like research and administration and who the temporary health lay workers would be. So anyway, I appreciate those comments. I think I agree with Secretary Walter.
Okay. That'd be
So
fine.
if I am able to respond,
Let's do it.
as it relates to access at the local health unit, I agree that testing is being provided at the county level, but not everyone has access to go to a local health unit. Mobile health units provide access at the city level as well, going actually into cities where the local health unit may not necessarily be located. I think this proposal also specifically focuses on minorities statewide, and there has not been a prior proposal and or focus to provide access to minority participants who may not have previously received access. And we have seen a disparity as it relates to COVID-19 for all minorities within our state. This would provide access to reach those entities. The request for marketing is specifically to have a plan to market testing opportunities so that individuals will know in advance when those testing sites are being offered. One thing that we have learned from the Minority Health Commission is that testing opportunities sometimes happen, but individuals find out about it the day before. And that doesn't necessarily provide access to those who are part of the working force to request time off of work and or to stand in line and wait for periods of time to be tested. So if they know in advance when it's going to happen, then they can prepare in accordance. In addition, as it relates to community members, the mobile health unit has had the experience of working with local nonprofits who are able to work side by side with us to announce and share health education information, as well as when we are coming to town, which has shown really good results when it comes to reaching the people where they are. And so the Minority Health Commission has been able to provide well over 25,000 screenings through our mobile health unit, simply by partnering at the community level, working with those who would not normally be trained as health educators, but would be empowered to provide information to share with others that are like them, who may not necessarily have access and or opportunity to receive services, and that are trusted in the community so that individuals feel safe to access those services. And so I agree that there has been opportunity to get testing at the local health unit, but I don't know that everyone has been able to utilize those services. This proposal provides access for the populations, minority populations that have experienced disparities and have not had the opportunity to seek those services.
So, okay. I just have a quick question. I'm so sorry. Follow up. Can you name the different nonprofit organizations? Number one, and I think there were listed 5. I'd like to see who those are, and then secondly, you know, whenever we had a mobile event, a testing, pop-up testing. I mean, we put it on Facebook. All of your representatives and senators, you know, have the ability to do that for free. So I just, again, getting back to priorities, if there's a mobile health unit that needs to go to those areas, I'd like to see that and see how much that would be outside and apart from the nonprofit organization bucket. So if we had to scale this back, for me personally, I think the mobile health unit and what support that would require, and maybe marketing, promotion, and how much that would be versus kind of removing some of the other components of this if we do need to prioritize and scale things back. So what would that, I guess, so then my question would be, if that were the case, so what are the 5 organizations that were mentioned by name? And then if you did have to scale that back, to me, the priority would be the mobile health unit to go to those very out of the way type of areas. And so, but you know, how that could be scaled back is what I'm looking at as far as priority.
And so the 5 organizations are not necessarily all nonprofits, but of course the Minority Health Commission, Mobile Unit, the NYIT out of ASU Jonesboro Mobile Health Unit, Jefferson Comprehensive's Mobile Health Unit, Our Care has a Mobile Health Unit, and UAMS. So those are all mobile health units that we could provide access to funds to increase our reach and services in all mobile health programs that are currently recognized and partner at the community level. As it relates to scaling back, I'm not prepared to answer that question today, simply because we've looked at the cost that it would be for those 5 entities to be able to provide services, as well as to get access to the appropriate PPE and testing to reach the entire state. And so I am unfortunately not prepared to answer the question as it relates to scaling back providing services statewide for minorities.
Go ahead, Senator Wallace, did you have a question?
No, I worry about duplication of effort. We've got agencies out here that are, I think, doing a good job. And I agree with what Senator Irving is saying.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Romero, would you like to respond, please?
Yes. Can you hear me? So I just wanted to add some quick comment to this. While Senator Irvin is correct in that the representatives and senators have Facebook's pages that can get this information out, remember that it may not be linguistically competent. So one of the issues that we learned, that the ADH learned from the CDC's involvement in the outbreak up in the Northwest Arkansas, was that Latino populations are using different media other than Facebook. So they're using, and again, I'm not expert in this, as you saw by disconnecting myself, but they're using these social apps that allow them to communicate with each other. So Facebook may not be the best way to reach them, and we need to have access to different areas. Also, the mobile units serve, you are correct that we have a number of testing events at our local health units, which is one of the advantages we have. But the mobile health units also reach out to these individuals on weekends and certain days where they might be able to come more readily than to go to a local health unit. And then lastly, one thing that wasn't mentioned in this proposal, but certainly comes to mind now that we have the vision of a vaccine in the future, is that having these mobile health units may allow us to use them, if you will. It's not written into this proposal, but thinking forward, use them to deliver vaccine to specific populations in the future. And if it is correct that we are going to have allocations beginning as early as November and monthly thereafter, these mobile health units may play a greater role than just testing itself. So I just wanted to leave you with those comments. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to respond. I'm sorry. May I ask a quick question?
Sure. You go ahead.
So I just, I know that each of those entities, I believe, have received a amount of money directly from the federal government for testing and for all those things. And so, again, I think that this is duplicative, and I know that we've already spent money for through the Department of Health, we have given a lot of money to develop advertising campaigns, marketing campaigns that are specific for the Hispanic population, the Marshallese population. I know that we have also done that through the Minority Health Commission. We have paid for marketing that is specific for certain communities to get that word out. So, yeah, again, I don't want to be duplicative in our spend, particularly given the fact that we are going to be in $23 million in the hole. And I'm super concerned about, on the back end, the unemployment trust fund, because every single business is going to be hit by that on the back end of this. And, what's going to happen with that. So I appreciate that. I know that we have spent a lot of money, and it's very hard to make these decisions when we don't have in front of us, yes, this is what we spent, this is what we spent it for, yes, it was effective, or no, it wasn't effective. So I thank you. I'd like to know more of those monies of how we've already spent that money. We've had those conversations before in this committee and other committees, and those numbers, I think, be given to everybody.
Okay. So one thing that we did notice is in this proposal, they are requesting 22 weeks of work to be performed. And so that we need to reduce that amount. So it would not, the total expense for the weeks of workers, for temporary health workers, should be reduced to the however many weeks we're going to actually be able to perform. You do have 90 days for the mobile health unit, so that likely would be able to be utilized. And then
I agree that the proposal was submitted quite some time ago, and so with taking that into consideration, we do have less time to provide services. And I also agree that the committee did approve $100,000 specifically to provide education efforts for marketing. But I would like to again remind that these marketing efforts would be to market testing events for the mobile health units. And then as well as the additional testing for minorities that was provided for the northwest portion of the state, but we still have the other corners of the state that have not been reached at this point, specifically Southwest and the Delta counties. And this would be a great opportunity to be able to focus and provide services for minorities. The Minority Health Commission has been working with the other proposals, and we will do our job and best to make sure that there are no duplication of efforts. And I see this as being an opportunity to reach places in the state that currently has not had funds dedicated and or services received specifically for minority populations.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
I have a question, comment.
Yes, go ahead, Representative Allen.
Okay. First of all, Ms. Love, I want to thank you for working so hard and diligently and pleading your case. One of the things that come to mind is that everything that you talked about today is true. The areas that has hit the hardest is the minority community. And with your mobile unit, those mobile units going forward in the community, they are going to reach people that ordinary people couldn't be reached, with the exception of those mobile units. And I heard the comment that we could use Facebook, but as you know, in certain parts of the state of Arkansas, we all know this, we don't even have broadband. And I think that one way of reaching people is that we have to be very targeted, marketing, specific in what we're trying to do. And I think what you're trying to do is very admirable. And I think it targets the people that really need to help. And I know this is going to be a challenge, a difficult job for you to do, but I think you're on target with everything that you said today. And I'm prepared to move forward. And then we also talked about the unemployment benefits. If this money had been spent, there would not be any money available for unemployment benefits. Now, what we said that we were going to do was set that $250 million aside and look at it again, according to my colleague Lane Jean, on October the 1st. And October the 1st is not here, but it appears to me that the money is we already know where the money is going to go. You said it's going to go to unemployment benefits, so the money's already spent.
I'm not sure that's the. I mean, I think that's a determination to be made after.
Well, it sounds to me like the decision has already been made. Now, I might be wrong, but they just said that the fund is depleted, so it's obvious that some of the money is going to go over there to the fund. I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Representative Gray.
Thank you. I think like as I read through the proposal, one of my concerns is the test kits. I feel like we just keep throwing money to Department of Health for contact tracing and for testing, whether that's kits or swabs, whatever it is we're doing. And I guess for Dr. Romero, could you tell me why we need this additional money and why you could not use money that we've already allocated to you or that you've been allocated from another source to fund this?
Good point.
So the funding that we have has been committed to other aspects. This is an extension of the funding of the testing that we had planned and is more targeted. So I would need to go and talk with Joe Thompson to get this information for you. But right now, our allocations are primarily already spent, are targeted for the large sets of testing we're doing at the local health unit. We're dedicating significant amounts of funding for testing now that schools and universities have opened. And we'll be moving into more point of care testing in the near future as those become available. So I can't answer your question with concrete numbers and facts at this point, but certainly can provide you with that information if you give me a little bit of time.
Thank you. And I think I would like that. I think there are other parts of this proposal that I would be good with. The lay worker reminds me of something that Representative Flowers has an interest in trying to connect certain facets of the community, whether it be to their physician, to a therapist, to whatever it is that they need. And she's done a great job, to me at least, explaining what the need in communities are for that. So I guess there are other parts of the proposal that I do support that particular thing. I feel like we've overfunded testing and tracing at this point, and I feel like the Department of Health, if this is something that they want to fund, either needs to come back to us and say, we've already exhausted our funds and this is where we're at, or we have, X amount of money left and we could allocate this.
If I may make one other comment, I would not mix into this bucket contact tracing and contact investigation. I think that's a whole different issue. I think you're correct. You're asking for accountability with regard to the testing, but I would prefer if we keep that one aspect out of this, because it's a totally different aspect with regard to the tracing and the contact investigation than from testing itself. So we'll address your question. I think it's a valid one.
Yes, thank you. And I agree with that from a legislative perspective. I throw them together because that's most legislators throw them together in the amount of money that we spent on the two in totality. But yes, for this, I would agree. It's just for the testing. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have gone over our time, and I did want to just find out what's the will of the committee. I'm getting a feel from the number of questions that we've had and requests for additional information and potentially recalculation that would we want to consider this proposal at another time? Or is there a motion to approve this proposal now? I just was wanting to know what the will of the committee is at this point.
This is Dave Wallace. I'm not prepared to vote for this at this point in time. I believe that, again, it's duplication. And if public health is saying that these people can do a better job, then we need to claw the money back from public health and give it to them. I agree with Michelle.
Okay, let's,
I have brief questions.
Go ahead, Senator Bond, thank you.
Well, I just wanted to clarify, I think we're all on the same page, but when Larry was talking earlier, he was talking about we've spent the 1.25 billion and that we have not spent that, right? I mean, we're talking about if you set the 250 million aside and we approve all these today,
yes,
not considering clawbacks, we would be over that amount. But right now we have not dipped into the $250 billion, correct?
Correct. Thank you.
250 million, sorry.
Yeah.
And then just on the proposal, just for clarification for me, I think I know where this is headed, but if you read the budget narrative under mobile health units, it says the request is calculated at the per day rate of $809 of additional funding to cover mileage, equipment, supplies, cleaning, and multi-practice personnel. So that was part of my question is there a way to approve part of this today, have them ready to go, or does it all fit together like a puzzle? It seems to me, the way I read that is that the mobile health unit is totally separate from the test kits and some of these other items. But I do think that we need to address some of our, particularly our minority health issues, and making sure we're staying on top of that today if we can.
So I think, Dr. Romero, I think the question is, can we separate the mobile health unit from everything else? But my gut, well, the test kits are 45 days. So let's ask Dr. Romero.
Well, and just to be particular, Dr. Romero, if you read the budget narrative, that's what I'm going off of. It seems to indicate that that's a totally separate thing. I'm generally in favor of the proposal, but I didn't know if it's possible. I think Senator Irvin sort of asked it earlier about breaking it apart, but it seems like the budget narrative does break it apart to some extent. Is there a way to break it apart and prove some of it today and then come back on the rest or not?
Before I answer, I really should let Ms. Love chime in on this issue. Can we break this out and fund certain aspects of it, Ms. Love?
I think we can definitely fund certain aspects because there are some things that can be done independently of the other. I do believe that the test kits are needed for the mobile health unit. So there is the possibility to work through the Department of Health to receive access to test kits while we, if Dr. Romero approves that, while we work out the rest of the details. I do think that the test kits are needed. That's one of the things that we would be utilizing with going into the communities.
So then I think we can, I'm sorry, am I live? Can you hear me? Then I think we can try to parse through this and decide which aspects we can fund at this point, which are acceptable to the committee to move forward on, and then bring back more information for those which for example, which Dr. Irvin has asked appropriate questions for, and Dr. Gray and Ms. Ray.
Thank you. So just on that budget, this is Senator Irvin, just on that budget breakdown. So the test kits, though, I know Stephanie Williams had reported to us that it was difficult to get the test kits because the federal government had kind of commandeered them. So, you know, the way that this, so I need to know, A, if we give you the money, can you buy them? I mean, that would be one question. Two, but the 45 days, so that's not matching up to your 90 days and your 45 days, and 3,000 tests per day is a lot. I'm not sure if that's achievable, to be honest, or not. And then what in this line goes with the mobile health unit. So in other words, we know that mobile health unit needs the marketing promotion line. So we know that $50,000 is marketing and promotion for the mobile health unit, which is $364,050. Is the temporary health lay worker a part of, are they the ones working in the mobile health unit?
They would be working to support the mobile health units, yes.
Okay. And then, but the nonprofit peer support and the research and administration, those are kind of separate. Is that correct?
Yes.
Kind of, is that, okay. So that's what I'm saying, is that I think that, you know, I think the temporary health lay worker needs to be recalculated because of what was identified by Secretary Smith. Then the mobile health unit, that number is probably correct, but I think test kits might need to also be recalculated. So, and so I'm not sure how we get there or how we work through this, but I'd kind of like to see that before I'm prepared to vote on this proposal.
Well, in the interest of time, would it be okay with the committee if we put this one on hold and see if we can get the Department of Health to work through these issues that have been brought up, and then potentially maybe bring this back to y'all? Maybe we could do a draft and see what y'all think about that before we bring it back up.
I'm for that. I think that we need to do it soon, though. I mean, because if not, you know, you're kind of running out of time if this is going to be effective or not. So,
well, we can meet. I mean, I'm happy for the committee to meet next week if the members are available.
Okay, I'm happy to work through that.
Okay. So unless I hear from anyone else, or we get a motion to try to pass this right now, I would like to hold this aside, see if we can get some of these things recalculated, and then hopefully we can have a meeting next week and see if we can address this, and potentially we can get with the Department of Health on the other things and how that fits together.
That sounds perfectly acceptable.
Okay,
to table it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, committee. It is 5:14 and we have a number of items left on our agenda. I realize that I have gone over time. I realize we have a number of other proposals left. Do you want to push forward? I will pull my request from the Medicaid Inspector General's office off. We can do that later. May not even get the funding, end up not requesting it. But do you want to go forward? Is there one of these pieces on the agenda that you would like to push forward with today? We do have a number of people that we've received some positive feedback and some positive comments regarding the request from the Department of Parks, Heritage, and Tourism. Secretary Hurst is here to present that. The request related to the child advocacy centers, we do have an amendment to the document that was sent out. So we may want to consider that at another meeting, since we've already run over time today. And then we have the discussion related to the Department of Commerce and the LWA program, the need to extend the funding. So do y'all want to push through and try to handle Department of Parks and Tourism and Department of Commerce, or do y'all want to adjourn?
Let's move through and let's get those two taken care of. Commerce can be quick. I'm sure Secretary Hurst could be as well.
Okay.
I second that.
I was going to say, if it's possible to do child advocacy centers, they can be really, really fast. It's not a substantive correction typo.
This is Senator Irvin, and we had this item in our for Department of Commerce, item G, for the $8 million. We had a discussion in the Public Health Committee meeting this afternoon. And so I'm prepared to make that motion at that proper time for item G.
Thank you. Well, I guess that I'll just move that one on forward up to the agenda. We'll just rearrange our agenda and we'll hear from Secretary Preston real quick if you want to explain. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but if anybody has questions.
Yes, pretty self-explanatory. Dr. Childers is on here too, and we'll hit G. We can go back to H at whenever you want, but this is to supplement our 25% match that we need to match the LWPA, which was the executive order from the president. This will extend the $300 additional benefit for those receiving unemployment insurance compensation. As the federal pandemic unemployment compensation, the $600 expired and the president did the executive order. So this would be to help supplement that match and allow us to draw down additional federal funds and get those funds out. And I would second Senator Irvin's motion.
Thank you. Are there questions or discussion? One piece of information that I would like to make sure that everybody's aware of, there is a question as to whether we can use that. But I would like for us to go forward with this, and if there is a change federally that says,
Get ready to call you.
Senator Wallace,
I'll give you a call.
if there is a change, then the money will be brought back to the CARES Act Steering Committee.
That's correct.
So that was
Secretary Preston.
Yes.
This is Larry Walther. You heard me earlier when I was talking about the total spend. I mentioned that Open for Business grant program, and there's a balance unspent on the last one of 19 million. Is that going to be spent?
We'll be returning about $18 million.
Okay, so that probably will help us make that decision on the 8 million, because if we can get the 18 back, that makes it a lot easier decision.
That's right.
Okay, any other discussion or questions regarding the motion to approve the request for $8 million to go to the workforce services to fund the LWA program?
Do you have a second yet? If not, I'll second.
Yes, I had a second. Senator Preston was our second, and Senator Irvin was our motion.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. I don't see any discussion or requests or questions. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I see some thumbs up. And any opposed? Okay, thank you. That passes. Okay.
I can run through that second part of that real quick if you want me to as well.
Yes.
So the other part of this is for the continued services for our contract with Maximus. This is the call center that supports the unemployment insurance hotline. Obviously, we've seen the need continuing with this extended program. These are the folks who are on the front lines answering these calls. This contract would take us through the end of the year with this call center. And again, supporting our UI support at 2.8 million would cover that cost. So this is for the administration of that call center.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion regarding the request for 2.8 million to cover the call center for the unemployment?
I make a motion that we approve the request of Secretary Preston.
Second.
Secretary Walther and second by.
I did have one question.
Sorry, Will, I kept going on you. I'm trying to scratch this through. Go ahead.
That's how I read. That is with expanded hours, the 2.8 million, as we're having the expanded call center hours still.
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a second by Secretary Gillespie. Any other questions or comments, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that motion has passed as well. Thank you, Secretary Preston. Okay, getting back to our agenda, we do have a request for the Child Advocacy Centers for $425,000 related to COVID-19 costs and Secretary Gillespie's here to speak on that. It's my understanding that we do have a higher rate of children needing these advocacy center services, and which is very sad. So go ahead, Secretary Gillespie, and let's hear.
Okay, I'll be very quick, and I thank you very much. And I have Deputy Director Keisa Smith and Elizabeth Pulley from the Child Advocacy Centers are both on in case there are questions. What we're asking is to be able to allocate up to $25,000 for each of the 17 child advocacy centers for them to be able to get reimbursement for COVID-related expenses. As Secretary Smith just mentioned, with COVID and more children at home and a lot of the stresses and pressures that are going on, we're seeing an increase in the hotline calls, expecting to have more, unfortunately, more need for child abuse investigation services, and the child advocacy centers play a critical role here. You see in the proposal the very specific types of activities for which they would request reimbursement. We have worked with them to develop those, and we've set up a process here, if this is approved, where they would be able to seek reimbursement for expenses incurred starting with COVID, the pandemic back in March, up through the end of August. Go ahead and send those on in to us now, get those reimbursements done, and then send in the next tranche of reimbursements to cover the period after that up through, I believe it's November 24th. That would then allow them to send those in, and if any of the CACs do not end up needing the entire $25,000 for reimbursable expenses, it would allow us to let DFNA keep that money in the committee, reallocate it right at the end of the year. So that's kind of a quick summary. Happy to take questions. As I said, the CACs are here to answer them.
Anyone have any questions?
I'd make a motion to approve the proposal.
I second.
Thank you. I heard Secretary Preston with the motion, and
About,
Secretary Walters waving. He wants to be our second.
No, that's okay. Senator Irvin.
Go ahead, Senator Irvin. Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you, Senator Irvin. Okay. So any questions, discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve the $425,000 for the child advocacy centers, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. No opposed? I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the last thing on our list today is from Department of Parks, Heritage, and Tourism. Sorry, I just realized we jumped you with Commerce. Mike slid in. So Secretary Hurst is here, and while she's opening her mic, because Cindy, if you'll mute, then that'll give an opportunity for her to show up, I think. Thank you. There you
hear
are.
me?
Thank you. Yes, I can hear you. And I did want to say the committee has seen, we had at least 23 positive, I think I'm yelling, at least 23 positive comments on our CARES Act website where we received comments. I received a letter from President Pro Tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, both in favor of this proposal, as well as a recent request from Representative Dotson, who I think has called in. So he may want to say something, but it's been such a long meeting, he might have missed out. So please, Stacey, go ahead and tell us, Secretary Hurst, tell us about the business interruption grant. I know you and your committee have been working very hard on this, and we really appreciate it. So please go forward.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you, committee, for considering this request. As you all know, we had our first COVID case back in March 11th. And really, it was by early April that industry insiders and economists knew that the pandemic would have a devastating impact on the travel, hospitality, and service industry. And now we hear over and over in newspaper articles, industry surveys, and we know even from our own data at Arkansas Tourism that the travel and hospitality sectors are the hardest hit in the economy and predicted to be the slowest to recover. For example, just to let y'all know, our 2% tourism tax that we collect at Arkansas Tourism, which is an indicator of travel within the state, is down 35% this calendar year. And that includes a record-setting month in February that saw 24% growth year over year. So we are really struggling in this arena. In early June, the governor asked me to pull together a hospitality working group and gather data and make recommendations on actions that could provide relief. Several weeks and a lot of research and many conversations later, the proposal has broadened but become more specific in its definition. The proposal in front of you today is for a $50 million fund to pay for a business interruption grant program that would be administered through a working agreement between our Department of Parks, Heritage, and Tourism, the Department of Commerce, and the Department of Finance and Administration. Grants would be made available to entities negatively impacted by state orders directly related to COVID-19 mitigation. The funds are intended to assist in covering losses that are incurred as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the related public health response. The outline of the proposal has been sent to you, so I won't review it, but I will say that while we have spent a considerable amount of time shaping what's before you, there's still a lot of work to be done regarding specific definitions, the specific information that will be required of applicants, exactly what applicants will qualify. But we plan to do that in concert with the legislature as we create rules for the program. So our General Counsel, Jim Andrews, is taking the lead on drafting this framework. We have some really good examples in Wyoming and in Maine. They've both done big programs that are similar in nature. And we are happy to take any questions at this time. Jim is also on the line. Senator Dismang has emerged as a champion of this program. He was going to try to get on. I'm not sure if he was going to be able to be on at this time, but if he's on, I wanted to give him an opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you. I did see him earlier, but we've gone so long, he might have had. Senator Dismang, are you still on?
I think he had a meeting at 5:15, so he may have had to drop off. I think it was on other Senate business, actually, but yeah, so he was on earlier, I know.
Thank you. Well, my apologies to having him wait and all of you to have to wait. So,
well, that's all I'll say. I think this particular sector within our economy has been particularly hard hit. I think you all know that. The hotel industry in particular, but restaurants, service industries, all are really, really suffering. So this would not make anyone whole, but it will hopefully provide relief that will get them through. So that's all I have, unless there are any questions for me.
Question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Secretary Hurst, the convention centers that are private, they would be eligible for this funding. The ones that are public would have to go through the city and county. Is that correct? I've had a question on that.
That is still up for discussion, and there is some thinking at this point that those convention centers that are essentially municipally owned could benefit or gain relief through the city-county money. But those that are private entities could qualify under this program. But we are still working through those exact rules. So that's going to require a little more discussion. Generally, that's the thinking right now.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Lane, this is Larry Walther. We agree with what she just said.
Secretary Smith.
And I have a quick
question. Say that again.
I hear another question.
Oh, that was Representative Gray. I just had a question. The pandemic unemployment insurance, I'm not sure exactly how that was applied to restaurants. I just wanted to make sure that if we had restaurants or other entities that qualify for this program that we check to make sure that they didn't already receive funds through the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program? Or are these two completely different funds that there will be no overlap?
Well, what we do plan to do is to, and Wyoming did this, an applicant has to list any federal or state grants related to COVID that they had received. And that factors into the formula in terms of the grant. So with the $50 million pot, grants will be prorated based on a formula that establishes the need. And those, the state and federal grants would have to factor into that formula.
Okay, and that's maybe, and I don't know on your wording of the application, if you, to me, if I'm just a layperson and you say, have you received any grant monies? I'm going to say no, because to me, unemployment, that pandemic unemployment, is not grant money, that's unemployment funds. So I just ask you, just maybe look at your wording on that as well.
Sure will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I think I heard Representative Dotson. I think he had called in. Did you want to make a comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I'm fully supportive of this measure, and I don't, with the remaining funds that you have left, I don't know if you can fund the full amount or not, but I encourage you to fund as much of it as you possibly can. Just wanted to add my name to the support for this proposal.
Thank you so much.
I had just a couple of clarifications. One, Secretary Hurst, the draft that we received says it indicates maybe you have to provide 3 years of financial data. Some businesses won't have that. And that's not going to be a disqualifier. I mean, if I just opened my restaurant a year and a half ago, I'm not going to be able to provide 3 years of data to you. That's not going to be a disqualifier, is it?
Senator Bond, we have we have to further define what the applicants have to provide, and we need to look at that and see how we can make sure, for example, that we are truly looking at a business interruption situation. And I will admit that that's a challenge, but I'm hoping that we'll have guidance from Wyoming and Maine both. And we won't have to reinvent the wheel as it regards this particular instance. I don't know the answer to that right now, but we are going to dig into that and figure out a way to, of course, help where we can. And Jim Andrews, are you still on the line? Do you have any other response to that?
Yes, I am still here, Secretary Hurst. That particular scenario has been discussed in our tentative drafts of a program. We're still trying to wrap our hands around that type of situation. I think we'll get there.
Well, and I would just, and I have another question, but I just want some commitment that we're not going to disqualify businesses that haven't been in existence 3 years, because that's the way the proposal reads now, which I don't think anybody on the committee would want to do that. If you've been in business 2 years, somehow you don't qualify for the grant program. That just doesn't seem fair to me.
I think there's a way to figure that out within the formula. Maybe it is that we look at their pro forma, their financial package that they got to, if it's a brand new property. But I think there's a way that we could figure out some way to get some relief to those who are new businesses. It's a point that has been brought up with us, Senator Bond, and we'll work on that.
Well, and I just, I don't want to have a proposal that only helps people that have been in business for a certain amount of time. That doesn't seem fair to me. It should apply to anybody, who has the business interruption. Then the other thing, are we considering a cap on what each entity would, what each applicant would be able to receive? It seems like we should establish a maximum so that a few entities don't eat up the entire amount of money.
And our thought was that we would do we'd gather all of the information. So it'd be almost a 2-step process. We'd have a quantitative screening of applicants, and then we would have a qualitative adjustment and allocation. And that formula it will be a prorated formula, but the cap, I don't know if we need to establish a cap, but it definitely will be based on a qualitative analysis of the data.
All right. And
It really depends on the information that we get. We know that it's a limited amount of money. It's a $50 million pot, and we can't ask for additional money at this point. So we'll have to look at how much, how many applications we get and do some analysis of that data.
All right. Just lastly, and I'm following, do we have a commitment that we're not going to exclude businesses who haven't been in business less than 3 years from y'all?
You have my absolute pledge that we will work on that. Absolutely. I think there's a way to do it. I haven't been able to figure that out yet. Jim Andrews has been looking at that. Both Wyoming and Maine have programs, and we'll, this isn't the last conversation we'll have about it, Senator Bond. We'll have to bring rules in front of the legislature. So yes, we hope, I think we'll be able to accommodate that.
Thank you.
And if I may add, Senator Bond, to your other point, we do have a cap language in the current draft of the program. It's a placeholder. We have not done the qualitative analysis yet that we think we need to do to establish what that cap would be.
This is Senator Missy Irvin. Just quick question.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I just kind of wanted to just make sure I'm clear on this. So this is like an open time and a closed time, not first come, first serve. Is that correct?
Correct. You are correct.
Okay. And then secondly is a question to Larry Walther. Where, if we fund all 50 million of this, does that put us in the hole? Or where are we? Or is there an amount, if we had scaled this one back, what would that amount of money be if we kept the 250 million in reserve?
Were you watching what I was doing?
No, I'm camped out here.
I was putting pen to paper. And if I can include the $18 million that Secretary Preston returned to me, and we don't put in the $6.6 million from health, we will not exceed the amount.
Okay.
That's with $10 million. There's an 8 and a 2.8. Well, that's actually 10.8 million from the Department of Commerce, $50 million, and then the others. Yeah, I think we'll be right on pretty much on the money. Was my quick calculation.
Okay, thank you. So quick question, because we're going to revisit the Department of Health request, we don't know how much that would totally be. Is there a way to fund an initial amount of money? I'm just throwing this out there, like 40 million or 45 million. And then if we have that additional 5 million, we could come back and drop it in. Would that be, you know what, I'm just so that we could come in on the money, because I don't want to go in the hole. And I want to keep the 250 million as a reserve. So I'm just looking at
I agree with you, Senator Irvin. I agree with you. One thing that I have been doing and looking at is the allocations that we have already made that have not spent the money that has been allocated, and the time periods have run on those. And so after discussing that, after looking at those myself and discussing it with DFNA, I do feel that we will have enough to cover these. But I want to send that spreadsheet to y'all so you can look at it too. And then what we can do is come back and, to the committee. So, I mean, my thought is that we can cover this 50 million. but I hear what you're saying.
Secretary Smith?
Yes.
Secretary Smith, I'd like to make another comment. There are other areas where we have not spent significant amounts of money. And I think we need to be visiting with those agencies to determine what the probability of that spend is and reclaiming those. But I think we'll need to sit down individually and do that.
And Secretary Smith, I don't know if you can hear me.
I gotta pay all these hospital bills.
Secretary Smith.
Go ahead, Secretary Gillespie. I can hear you. Please.
Hey, what I was going to say was something similar to what Secretary Walther said. We have several that have reached their end stage here, and we have a meeting tomorrow to look at those to see what is outstanding to be paid. So we should be able within a couple of days to give to DFNA some idea of the funds that will not be spent previously allocated over to DHS. So if it's going to come in on the money for today, by the time you meet next week, we should have a proposal from here to return some monies.
Great. And I do know that y'all did have 112,000 that came, that's not a ton, but that came back from the foster parent allocation. And I don't know that that's been factored into what we have remaining.
I don't know, we gave it, I mean, we did formally as a committee move for it to come back, so.
Right, but I'm not sure DFNA has added it.
Yes.
To the.
But one of the things by putting timings on ours is they do reach end stages and we're able to bring them back once we've cleared out the invoices, so.
I have a question. This is Representative Gray.
Go ahead, Representative Gray.
Thank you. And I may have missed this earlier in the conversation, but I think we learned a lot from that Ready for Business grant launch. And I think I did hear her say that we know that this is a defined pot of money, the 50 million or whatever we approve, and that there's no coming back to get more. So my question would be, are we going to do with the Ready for Business where we say this is open for 2 days, this application process? Are we leaving it open for 2 weeks? What happens if we have $150 million worth of requests? Do we prorate each and every one of those? I guess just some procedural questions.
Yes, ma'am. We will publicize when we finally get the rules finalized and the appropriation approved. Then we would publicize the opportunity, leave it open for a number of days. I can't tell you exactly how long, but it would be open for a number of days so that people could have plenty of time to apply. And then it would be based on a prorated formula. Based on the data that we ask applicants for and they provide us, then we would analyze that data, do a qualitative analysis of the data and prorate the grant funding.
Okay, thank you. And one more thing, I think I would like to kind of reiterate what Senator Bond said in the 3-year piece that we talked about, in that a lot of times the newer businesses are going to have a harder time remaining open than the ones that have been established for 10, 20, 30 years. So I think you will have to come to ALC with this. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And I strongly suggest that when you come to ALC, we kind of have that 3-year piece worked out, especially for those businesses that are new.
We will work through that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Secretary Smith, I think Senator Dismang is on the line. Is he?
Thank you, Senator Dismang. I'm sorry we've kept you waiting so long. Are you there? Let's see. Jeremy, did you see him call in?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. I'll be happy to hear from him. Is there any other question?
I mean, he had to go into a meeting in Searcy, and his laptop died. But I will just say that I know that he has done like a lot of due diligence and looking at the sales tax information, and where that sales tax has not been collected, which shows a pretty strong indication of how these particular entities have suffered because looking at the data and looking at those sales tax collections. And so he's really dug deep into that using his accounting mind. And I know he's worked hard on this, but I'm just going to say that on his behalf, not solicited. But anyway, he's done a really good job on this, and I appreciate his leadership on this very much so.
Thank you. I do know there's been a lot of work put into this, so thank you all very much. I think we don't have any more comments or questions. Do we have a motion?
I'll move, or if someone else wants to, whatever. I'll move approval.
Thank you, Senator Bond. And the second by?
I'll second.
Oh,
Representative Allen.
Representative Allen. Thank you, Representative Allen.
I'll yield to Representative Gray.
Okay, Representative Gray. So we have a motion by Senator Bond and then second by Representative Gray. Any questions, comments, discussion at this point? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Are there any opposed? No. Good. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all's time. And
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacy. Good luck. We look forward to seeing the final product.
Thank you.
At this point, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much for your patience and your time today.